Alright, so I watched Diary of a Wimpy Kid. It was made in 2010 by Thor Freudenthal. Freudenthal? I don't know if I'm saying that right. Sorry. It starred Zachary Gordon as Greg Heffley. And it's based off of the books Diary of a Wimpy Kid, same name. So yeah, the movie, it follows Greg Heffley and his best friend Roderick Rowley. He has an older brother, Roderick, and a younger brother, Manny. He lives at home with his parents, obviously, because he's like 11. And yeah, so it starts off and he's beginning middle school. Really pivotal life moment there. And, he starts school and he's like trying to figure out where he fits in, what clubs to join, what activities to do, who to be friends with, how to be friends with them. And a lot of it is him trying, the whole like overarching plot is he's trying to basically get a superlative in the yearbook. At the end of the year, he wants to be like, most athletic, most handsome, something like that. And yeah, so he, gets to school, it's his first day, and that school is terrifying. First of all, like I would literally not last 5 minutes there. I would just walk out the door and leave. It was so scary. These kids were so aggressive and wild and mean and like very, I don't know, it was like prison. It literally was prison. Like how I imagine a prison riot is what this middle school was like. Just absolute chaos and gross. The bathrooms were missing doors on the stalls and trash being flung everywhere, which, like, granted, that's how my high school was, but it wasn't quite as rowdy. So yeah, that's what he's greeted with on his first day, and he eventually joins the wrestling team. And it's really entertaining watching him try to like join the next weight class, I guess, higher than him. He's so little and like hasn't really hit puberty like all the boys around him have, I guess. So he's like still really tiny, and he wears his mom's ankle weights to get up to the next weight class, which is pretty funny. He is dealing with different bullies. And still wants to be like them. We are introduced to the cheese touch, which basically makes you a social outcast if you touch the cheese or get the cheese touch passed on to you by somebody else. He auditions for a musical. I mean, he's trying it all, and all the while dealing with his crazy older brother and trying to change himself and become the person he would like to be, even though he's not doing so great at it. Yeah, he and his friend Rowley, his best friend, they've been childhood friends forever, and they had like a nice little cute friendship in elementary school. They would have their play dates and everything, and he's starting to realize like, oh, it's time to grow up, and Rowley doesn't want to, so I'm gonna change him. I'm gonna make him cooler like me. There's always these like sequences where you can see in his like diary, he's journal as he would call it, I guess. He's keeping a ranking of the most popular kids in school, and he and Rowley are pretty low on the list, and he's trying to like skyrocket them up to like first and second. And Rowley is very unapologetically Rowley. He wears his serape to school. He is proudly a member of the hall monitors or whatever they are, safety patrol, I guess. And he loves Joshy. He has a Joshy bike, and like that's cool, be yourself. You want to be Rowley, not Greg. Yeah, so eventually they're, having one of their little hangouts, as Greg is trying to make them call it now, and he breaks Rowley's hand. A fight ensues, of course, and they stop being friends, with some other things that happen after that I'll get into later. But then Greg is trying to figure out like, okay, well, what do I do now? Like, he has time to focus on himself without focusing on trying to fix Rowley, which he really needed. And the movie finishes up with them becoming friends again, and it's really cute. So I'll start out with the things that I liked. Okay, the good things. I thought they had really age-appropriate casting. They weren't trying to pass off, a 20-year-old as an 11-year-old. You really bought these kids as the age that they were because they were the age of the characters. And they were really good actors for that age. I thought they were pretty funny. So I really liked that. I really liked how this movie teaches you like what to do by showing you what not to do, if that makes sense. I think it's a creative way to like show kids like, hey, you need to think about this a little bit more. If you're doing these things, maybe don't, if you're trying to be like Greg, don't be like Greg, be like Rowley, just be yourself, and that'll pay off in the end. So I'll get into that a little bit more, I guess. So Greg is a terrible person, dude. He is awful. He is mean. He's manipulative. He is entitled. He's a bad friend overall, especially to Rowley. He feels that he is way more than he is. He is such a, I don't know if it's necessarily a God complex, but it's nearing that. Greg, to start out with, is like kind of awkward and like not really well known by any of his like fellow students and any of his peers, and he wants to like make a name for himself, which who doesn't? You want to leave your legacy. But he just goes about it like the really wrong way, and he tries to make himself into everything that he's not. He tries to be a wrestler and he's not into it, but he thinks that it could get him a superlative, so he does it. He tries out for the like musical theater, and so he can become most talented, or what have you. I don't know. He just is so obsessed with fame that like blindsides him completely, which I also think is kind of interesting for like a kids movie. I feel like you see that a lot in like more adult films where like somebody's obsessed with being the most successful businessman or whatever, that they're like forget everything around them and forget to be a good person. So I think it's a good way to teach kids that lesson earlier on than when you're an adult and it's kind of too late. So I liked that. I liked watching Greg and Rowley together. Honestly, they're really funny, and like they kind of balance each other out, even though Greg is definitely a bad influence on Rowley, like 100%. He gets him in so much trouble that he shouldn't be in. He breaks his arm or his hand or whatever it was, and like doesn't even feel bad about it. He's trying to change him. He goes through his entire wardrobe and like takes everything out that he thinks isn't cool. He just like blows him off for like anybody who he thinks is cooler than him. And I'm glad that gets resolved in the end. I feel like what really brings them back together in the end, I said that he breaks Rowley's hand, that Greg breaks Rowley's hand, and another thing that happens is that Greg and Rowley, they were on the like home monitor safety patrol thing together, and they're walking some kids home, every day after school. But because Rowley has his hand broken, he can't walk them home one day when it's raining, because he can't get his cast wet. So Greg borrows Rowley's jacket and is walking the kids home, and he sees this group of high school bullies who, like, why are high schoolers even bullying middle schoolers? I don't think that's even a thing. But he decides to hide rather than like face them, and he hides all the children in this ditch and just ditches them. And it looks like it was Rowley who did it because he's wearing Rowley's jacket with his special R on it. And Rowley takes the fall for Greg, but does not want to continue the friendship afterwards either way. So you learn earlier in this about the cheese touch, and in the end they become friends over the cheese touch somehow. I really liked the cheese touch. I feel like it was such a good representation of that fear of always having to like look over your shoulder to like, especially at that age where like cliques and everything are such a big thing, there's so much drama, and you're always like looking over your shoulder to make sure you're not doing anything that nobody else is doing, Like, you want to fit in, but you also want to stand out. And it's kind of like trying to find that balance of it, I guess, at that age. Trying to figure out, you know, what is acceptable and what isn't, and sticking to the things that are acceptable and excelling at those things so that you get recognition for it that way. But, you know, you don't want to deviate too far from the norm. The whole thing in the movie of the cheese touch is, if you touch the cheese that's been sitting on the pavement out there for years, then you get the cheese touch, and everybody runs from you, and nobody wants to be around you, and the only way to get rid of it is to pass it on to somebody else. And I think it's really interesting, that personification of that fear of not wanting to deviate from the acceptable norms that, you know, everybody has in middle school, which, whether you want to admit it or not, they are there. It's not really something that just goes away either. But it's a lot more prominent than, I guess. So I really liked that. And in the end, Raleigh ends up having to eat the cheese, and Greg takes the fall for him, which is something much more serious and much more public than, you know, Raleigh getting kicked off of the safety patrol. And I really like that. It kind of comes full circle with Greg's character, where he's so afraid to be different, especially publicly, than anybody else, and then eventually takes the fall for Raleigh in front of everybody, over something so serious at this school. So I really liked that. More things I liked. Just some scenes I liked. I thought Roderick, I thought he was really funny. His character is just like the best part of the movie. Watching him always pick on his little brother is like hilarious and relatable to anybody here with an older brother, which I have, and yeah, that's what it's like to have one. I really liked that. And the musical audition was really funny. I love that song that they played during it. I think I'll go ahead and post a clip of it here.
And I get a little bit lonely when you're never coming round. Turn around. Every now and then I get a little bit tired. Listen to the sound of my tears. Turn around. Every now and then I get a little bit nervous that the best of all the years have gone by. Turn around. Every now and then I get a little bit terrified, and then I see the look in your eyes. Turn around, bite eyes. Every now and then I fall apart. And I need you now tonight. And I need you more than ever. And if you only hold me tight, we'll be holding on forever. And we'll only be making it right.
But I think it's so funny, just like the way that everybody's so bad. I still crack up at that scene every time I watch it. And I really liked the book sequences. I thought those were really cool to like incorporate the source material into the movie. Things I didn't like were, there were some weird editing choices in here. For one, the wrestling scene was really weirdly edited. Like, it was cut in like all over the place, and it was like sped up kind of weird. It just hurt to watch and I didn't like it. There's also like one really specific scene transition, kind of like, I think it was going between seasons or something, but there's a cockroach kind of like walking over the cheese outside, and it's so bad. It's like floating across the surroundings. It looks really awful. Bad things. Greg. Don't like Greg. Really didn't like Greg. He's so unlikable. His weird like complex is just, it's very hard to relate to him, which I think is part of it, because you don't want to be like Greg. Again, they're showing you what not to do through Greg, but it's hard to watch and like him or feel bad for him whenever anything happens to him. Like, everything around him is his fault, I guess. The high schoolers in this movie were really weird. They were like so obsessed with trying to like murder Greg and Riley, who were literally like 11. They were probably like, what, 16, 17? Like almost adults trying to kill these little kids over nothing that happened on Halloween. Like, I don't get it. I don't get it. It would have made more sense, I guess, if maybe Roderick and his friends had been the ones like going after them so hard, but it didn't make sense for these really weird high schoolers to be obsessed with these kids to the point that they, you know, break into the middle school when they should be in school themselves and make them eat the cheese. Like, that's not normal. I don't know. I feel like overall this movie was okay. I didn't like it as much as I did as a child. I don't think it held up quite the same. I actually kept a laugh count of how many times I actually laughed, and it was 4. The opening scene where Roderick is pranking Greg, and I remember laughing at like the musical audition because that's just really funny to me. But other than that, like, it was more boring than I remember. It was more like, it jumped around more than I remember. The plot wasn't very like loosely, it was just very loosely held together, I guess. And I remember it being more like making more sense, I guess. There's a fly in here. I just remember it like making more sense, I guess, as a kid. And watching it again, I was kind of like, why is this happening? Like, this whole thing happens, and then this whole thing happens, and it's like nothing really in between. Like, it just, like, you're from point A to point C, and I didn't really see why or how they got there. So yeah, overall, I give it a 4 out of 10. Honestly, it was fine. I think that it's really enjoyable for kids to watch, if they even still like watch these movies, I don't know, or read the books. I don't even know if they're still going. I think the kids would get a huge kick out of it. I certainly did as a child, but watching it back as an adult, it didn't really have the same wow factor, I guess it did for me back then. So yeah, overall rating of 4 out of 10. Thank you. I'll see you next time.